So my husband and I are creating this video for you of making ghee because it's one of, I'm going to say, our favorite things, the royal we. Actually, my husband is the ghee maker of the family. He loves to make ghee.
So for this portion, we've used 1 pound of unsalted butter. You must have unsalted butter to make ghee, to make it properly. So I'm going to be sharing the stages of making ghee. That's a non-Western form, but Linda, it's the Vedic form of making ghee.
It's how to make ghee from not just from a food perspective, but you know how Ayurveda encompasses body, mind, and spirit. So it's what's called a sadhana, meaning you're taking an activity and creating your food from a spiritual perspective. So we're using the senses, all the five senses, to really determine when the ghee is finished, how long it has to cook. So that's why we wanted to do this video, so that you could actually see these stages that the ghee goes through.
So there are stages that and number one, without the stages, the first thing you must do is be with your ghee while you're making it. Your presence is important. In my situation, I do mantras over the ghee and put my best thoughts and wishes into the ghee, which we should all do when we're cooking food in general. We should not cook our troubles into our food. So the first stage, there are 4 stages that you can use using your ears and your eyes to determine that the ghee is properly progressing, because ghee, the butter, will turn itself into ghee.
Okay.
What we're doing right now is it's just coming up to where you would be looking at, wow, I'm making lobster butter right now, if you would think of it that way, or drawn butter. Drawn butter is not ghee. The difference is that ghee is a pure oil made from butter without any of the milk solids left in the product, in the oil. In order to do that, it's got to be purified way past what drawn butter would be. Now, I'm going to let you listen to the beginning of the first stage, which would sound like rain on a tin roof. And if you close your eyes and take your sight away, the sound will you'll be in a building that it's raining on the roof.
Visually, what's happening, you can see the milk solids are coming to the top, starting to foam, and these big bubbles, don't be afraid of those big bubbles. They're exactly what you want to be happening.
That's literally, when the big bubbles come up and you're listening to that, that's actually the water evaporating out of the milk. And when the water gets far enough out of the milk and into the air, the particles of milk solids sink to the bottom. And your second stage begins. Now, this isn't it yet. And I must come back to the temperature in terms of medium, high, low. This is on a medium to slightly above medium open flame temperature. And I'm going to adjust that down if the suds of the milk solids get too high. And I will bring it back up for the second phase. Now the second phase will be marked by a very different sound, which is beginning to just start to happen already. And that would be a babbling brook, or a place in a stream where there are rocks causing this lovely waterfall effect, but with the gurgling and the bubbling of the brook. During this entire four-step process, ending in ghee being formed, I would invite you to send your best wishes, prayers, and thoughts into your ghee.
Look how it's changing.
How about it? This is the milk solids. As you see the yellow starting to show, the milk solids are falling down to the bottom of the pan. And eventually, they will literally sear onto the bottom of the pan. Now we're really into the brook, the babbling brook, the bubbling brook. And you can see that that thick, creamy foam has turned into larger bubbles. The third phase will be the quieting of the brook sounds. You will hear the last of the blurps of the final milk solids dropping down, but we will notice that there is much more bubble on the top, open bubbles popping. That's still the water reducing out of the milk solids, which right now, in person you'll see this when you're making yours. Right now those milk solids are still about a half inch under the surface of the clarified butter that's bubbling on top.
Enjoy the sound. Like a meditation. When you're making yours, you could be saying a prayer, a mantra, having good thoughts, or just simply being present to what's happening.
This third stage, where we're hearing, where we're seeing these bubbles happening at the beginning, this is the beginning of the third stage. It's the longest stage. The transitions from the babbling brook to this pot becoming filled with tiny, tiny bubbles. The tiny, tiny bubbles, you'll see them change in their quality, so that they will fill to the top of the pan and become silent. And when you hear the last bit of the bubbles and it becomes very quiet, you have ghee. And then we will turn the temperature off. We'll turn the flame off, and you will see the bubbles recede into complete silence. And you will look through this amber colored ghee to the bottom of the pan, where you will see a caramelized brown bottom skin, if you will, of the milk fats that are now held down and clinging to the bottom, so they do not change the quality of pureness. They have to be out of the ghee. It's really amazing, all by sound and sight. No measuring, just medium heat, and we'll continue. I will invite you to look to see right now the bubbles are beginning to change. The babbling's becoming louder because the bubbles are popping faster and getting thicker.
One of the biggest challenges is people will think, oh, it's boiling too fast or I have to turn the heat down, but you barely ever really change the flame under ghee. Michael has touched it slightly a couple times, but literally hardly even turn the knob. You have to let it really be active. The ghee is actively separating. The milk solids are separating from the oil or from the ghee.
All right, so now you can see a very dense, tiny bubble. It rose up. I reduced the heat to allow the bubbles to go back down. And now you can see this almost creamy, tiny, it looks like a foam almost. The bubbles are so tiny.
And you could skim some of the foam off the top, you know.
You could do
If
that.
you wanted to do that.
Because now the important part is making sure that you don't overdo the ghee. This is so still right now that it may be done because it's very still. It's just that the foam is very thick.
It's really quiet and very still, but it has this thick foam.
Still on medium heat. Listen to the difference. It's singing out that it's done. Through a strainer.
Do you need a funnel? No, you're good. Oh, look how gorgeous that is.